Welcome, and if you're listening to this podcast, it's highly likely you are one of the early adopters. I'm an entrepreneur, investor, and today, your podcast host. I've studied computer science for my bachelor's and hold other qualifications from UCL, Harvard, and Stanford, which includes a master's. I also hold many other financial qualifications from the London School of Business and Finance. I'm autodidactic, polymath, and a poor speller. The value proposition of the podcast is for startups, businesses, and want-to-be entrepreneurs. The idea is to learn from world-leading guests and up-and-coming entrepreneurs. Our aim is to attract a small community of like-minded folks that can connect, share, execute new solutions. The theme, business activism, or decentralization, Web 3.0. Disruptive technologies is so pre-2020. Today, I'd like to welcome James Delingpole to the podcast. James holds an undergrad in English language and literature from Oxford University, which led him to become an English writer, journalist, and columnist, who has written for a number of publications including the Daily Mail, Daily Telegraph, the Times, the Spectator, and an executive editor for Breitbart London. Let's go and say hello. The idea of the podcast is decentralisation, which is technically Web 3.0, or, I've coined it as business activism. And I've been watching you for over a year now, and I like your style, your journalism. And I feel that you only have that license to do what you do is because you're decentralized. You're totally independent in the terms of being independent. So that's why I really wanted to invite you onto the podcast. But from an entrepreneurial point of view, because the podcast is all about problem, solution, fit. So really wanted to find out about you as an individual, your entrepreneurial journey, how you got to take that leap of faith from being in the corporate world to an independent operator as an entrepreneur, and your solution, your pricing models, and how you feel it's gone for you, and how nervous you may or may have not been at the beginning of that journey.
Okay. So I became a journalist because I'm good at writing. I'm really good at writing. And I'm unsuited really for any other job. That's the problem. I mean, I'd love to have been a hedge fund manager or whatever, but I'm just constitutionally incapable of doing that kind of thing. I'm kind of quite sketchy. I don't really like taking orders from people. I don't like conforming to a company ethos, and I think you have to do that at least in the early stages of a financial career. Say, I might have been good at the stage where you just start making shed loads of money, but by having long lunches, whatever. But I wouldn't have been very good at the beginning stage, so I never have got to the end stage. So I ended up in journalism. I fell into journalism, and in the days when I was doing journalism, to start off with, you earned a really reasonable living. I was earning the same or probably more than as my lawyer friends, my accountant friends, even my city friends. I was in my 20s. I was having a good income, but then of course they catch up with you and they overtake you, and they earn much more than you. Where's your salary? I mean, my journalistic salary in real terms probably halved every decade, which is a function of the decline of the mainstream media, the legacy media, as it's rightly called. The model doesn't work because people don't buy newspapers anymore, so they can't make the money on the sales or indeed on the advertising. So what's happened to the mainstream media is that the only people they can recruit now are these woke kids fresh out of their university indoctrination, and they go into the media because they want to change the world. And by changing the world, what they mean is promoting this mendacious narrative which the system wants to use to brainwash people. So you don't get any news reporting anymore. I mean, to a degree, I'm sure it was ever thus. I'm sure that the media has always, to a degree, been propaganda for the powers that be, but it's definitely got much worse.
Anyway, ramped up
totally. So, but I realised at least a decade ago that the writing was on the wall for mainstream media journalism and for my career. I just didn't know where to take it. Then I started blogging, which I was very good at, and then I started podcasting, initially with Breitbart, they suggested the idea for a podcast, and I thought it was a good thing to do. And once I'd got my act together and started doing podcasts regularly, it was just it became part of my life. And then I thought about, how do you monetize it? And I thought, well, Patreon, Subscribestar, and this is where I am today. I don't make a fortune out of it, but it keeps me ticking along.
And what about you're an author as well?
Yeah, I am, but I haven't written a book for a long time. It's to do with the business model, that the effort you put into writing certainly a novel, especially now. I mean, the sort of novels I would want to write would never get published, because
what
no
about
one
self-publishing?
wants to read about
Self-publishing,
that might work, but then that would but that would involve somebody who wasn't me, somebody with an interest in. I mean, I am writing a book at the moment, and self-publishing is a possibility, definitely, because you want to get the book out there. You don't want it to be go through the incredibly long, tedious process of that the editors, the marketing departments needs to sell it into the bookshops, the publicity people need to do blah blah blah. That model wouldn't work for somebody like me. I like to kind of write the book, have it lightly edited, and then get it out there.
But you've got a big platform, social media platform, though. You've got a big social media platform where you've got your own distribution channel effectively now, 82,000 Twitter followers, etc.
That's true. I could, and maybe that is, I wonder what percentage of that 82,000 would buy the book. I mean, I suppose if I sold, well, I had 10,000 copies at 10 quid a copy, that would be worth it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think
that would be
10,000 copies at 10 quid, it's 100k.
Yeah, I wouldn't hold myself up as a model of entrepreneurialism, because I'm not. Look, I need money to survive, and obviously, the more money I get, the more kind of the more I'm freed from the man. But I'm not really, really good at monetizing my product. I mean, I think I should get paid loads more. And actually, funnily enough, why's my brain gone blank? Irish podcaster,
Ivor Cummings.
I've had him on the pod. Ivor Cummings.
Yeah.
Ivor, when I told Ivor how much money I made from my podcast, he was kind of shocked in not a good way, because he thought I could make much more. And it's true. Whether it's because I lack I'm not very, very good at the patter. I'm not very, very good at he says that you've got to advertise your Patreons and stuff several times during the podcast in order to make people give you money. And of course, I get so excited by the business of doing the podcast that I'm not really interested in plugging myself, even though I'm shooting myself in the foot in the process.
It's quite a typical thing, actually. You're in the business as opposed to running the business, if that makes sense. You maybe need some external person to sort of, you're creating all the content and doing your thing, but someone to give you their little nudging in the right places to optimize
exactly.
opportunities.
I'm a bit like Van Gogh. I need Theo, or whoever it is, to market my paintings, because all I'm interested in doing is creating my art. It just bores me. I've got a little brother who's a brilliant businessman, and I wish I had some of that business acumen. But since we're talking about this, I listen to other podcasts occasionally, and I get very impatient with the spiel at the beginning about when they just waffle away, and some of the waffle is to do with advertising or promoting themselves or promoting the product or whatever. And I just get bored rigid, so that by the time the podcast starts, I'm in such a bad place, I almost want to give up listening to the podcast. But probably they do better than me. I mean, there are other models as well I'm interested in pursuing, like the one that the Higher Side Chats does quite a good model, whereby he gives you your first hour free, and then your second hour you have to pay for, so you have to be a subscriber. And I think that's almost the best one, because, well, adverts they work up to a point, but they spoil the flow, and they also render you vulnerable perhaps to the vagaries of the market. People can cancel you.
Patreon. Have you looked at Patreon?
Yeah, no, that's what I do. I've got Patreon,
yeah,
and Subscribestar.
Yeah.
But you see, the problem with those two entities is that you are vulnerable to woke cancellation. I mean, look, the message being put out by people like me, the powers that be want to censor. They want to shut people like me down. We've seen this more and more often with big tech. Big tech is part of the problem that we're fighting against. And we are going to be, people like me, voices like mine, are going to be pushed to the margins. At the moment, I'm doing okay with Subscribestar and Patreon, but one never knows how long this will last. I mean, the person who's completely ahead of the game here is Vox Day. Vox Day has put together this coterie of cancelled voices who have a slot at his website, and he takes a hefty cut of their subscriptions, but he in turn he gives them safety, and he's probably right. He probably will be running the last redoubt of podcasts in the end.
Yes, I think very topical at the moment. I'm reading Robert Kennedy Jr.'s The Real Fauci.
You've got a copy?
Yeah.
How did you get one?
Amazon. I pre-ordered it about a month before it was.
Yeah, you see, you're very clever. I'm having to get my copy sent to me from America by an American fan who said, "Do you want to read this book?" And I said, "Yes, but I can't get hold of it." He said, "I'll send you one."
It's very good so far. I'm only halfway through, and it is, all the research that I've been researching, it's just compiled in a book, and you'll know loads of it as well. But it's just quite powerful to have everything in one place. And now
I think it's really important that the book is proven to be a bestseller. That's the key thing. I mean, you as you say, I would probably know a fair amount of what's in the book, but the point is that lots and lots of people are buying the book, and it's reinforcing the public understanding that.
Well, I think that's
I think
lied to. Yeah, and I think the only way, I think this is one of the main methods of actually finishing this, because the leaked emails, Fauci's email, is involved in gain of function. Technically, that's a form of terrorism. It's illegal. It's out in the open, and if you and I was doing something like that, would be strung up straight away. For some reason, he doesn't seem to be, and I think the only way it will end is with public opinion, and that's why that book's it's like a tool, I think.
Yeah, totally. Well, I listen. The book I'm writing, I hope will have a similar effect. It's kind of my God book.
Well, how do you mean?
It's about my journey towards deeper into Christianity as a result of what's happening now, because I think that this is a spiritual war we're engaged in. Ultimately, this is a battle between good and evil.
Yeah, and I think all wars on some level are spiritual. I find when you have that spiritual belief system, when you actually understand the reality of what's going on, it's overwhelming and daunting. But if you have a strong foundation and a spiritual belief system, doesn't matter which one it is, it allows you to be a lot stronger, because if not, it's quite frightening, actually.
Yes. Put upon you the whole armor of God. I mean, that's the deal. It protects you.
Well, if you think, I also think if you think of life as you're born and you're dead, your fear will overtake you. If you think there's more than this one reality, you can study quantum physics and stuff like that, then you start thinking actually there's a bigger picture, and it makes you much stronger, as opposed to thinking, God, the world's going to end and that's it. And if you think of it as a spiritual journey, and you're supposed to be here at this point in time for this particular reason, and you just go with the flow.
So you see, it's going to be a companion piece to the Fauci book. The Fauci is going to, sorry, not the Fauci, the Robert Kennedy book on Fauci. That book is going to acquaint people with the medical arguments against, or the sociological arguments against this manufactured virus
Pandemic,
and the vaccine thing. And my book will enable people to, to strengthen them for the fight, which I think is
oh, that's good. So because Fauci's actually a Jesuit. He went to a Jesuit school, so he's a Christian.
Yeah, well, I think the Jesuits are the source of a lot of the evil that's going on in the world.
Oh, well, like the Antichrist, like the Antichrist.
Well, they're trained in the art of casuistry, aren't they? I mean, that's part of the deal, and yeah.
So what
it doesn't surprise me that Fauci is one of them.
How do you get your media today?
I think like quite a lot of people, I listen to podcasts on car journeys because I can't listen to the BBC anymore. It's toxic. And so what happens is, you're trying to select a podcast before your car journey, so you're not sort of fiddling about with your stuff when you're driving, which is not safe. And you just get this just bilge at the beginning, and you're going mad. You're thinking, no, I don't want to listen. It makes you, and you're stuck with them. You can't change. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, you could lose your interest on it.
Cut to the chase, I say.
So who is your target market?
Oh, I have no clue. I mean, I get a very, very mixed. I get a very mixed audience. So some people listen to it with their kids. So I have to cut down on the swearing, which I often forget. I get people all over the world, America, Australia, New Zealand, global reach, all ages, all classes, and all political views. So I've got people who are Corbynistas, who sort of recognize that I'm kind of much more on board with their way of thinking than they imagined before, in the days when we used to believe in the left-right paradigm. I'm just there for everyone.
What would you say? What was your previously when you were in a corporate world? Who was the target market then? Who did you appeal to then? Was it just like the Telegraph readers?
Well, I tended to because I was on the Telegraph for many, many years, and because I wrote for the Spectator, I still do, up to a point. I suppose I would be addressing the Tory shires.
Yeah,
that back in the day.
And then
when these things still existed.
And then was it when you went onto social media, then that reach went right out? Do you think that your position changed as you matured, and then you appealed to more people, or is it because social media gave you that reach to people, and then other people started thinking?
No, the thing that I mean, okay, so the podcast was doing quite well before 2020, but the thing that sort of put me on the map was when the scales fell from my eyes, and simultaneously all my comrades in journalism abandoned their foxhole and ran away.
What you mean?
My flanks exposed and leaving, it's pretty much me in the mainstream, from the mainstream, it's pretty much me and Majid Nawaz in this country. There's a few others. There's the Coast guy, Neil Oliver. There have been some doughty fighters, but I've been helped by events that this massive thing has happened to us all, and most people haven't been up to the job of dealing with it. So almost by default, I've become the voice of the resistance.
So what I'm hearing is that you've innovated through the times, and so
but not consciously.
So you've adapted to the market, stay true to yourself and your own morals and principles, whilst the other part of the market, they're all like curtailing and following this narrative, this fine line of eroding of free speech and civil liberties.
Yeah. pretty much. I think we genuinely have a sacred duty to keep as much of the old normal as we can and to fight for it. So living the old life is it's a means of resistance. It's not something trivial anymore. It's absolutely really important.
It's like maintaining them old behaviours to maintain our culture, because everyone's being pushed into their homes. Yeah, because we're being, it's like a colonial, it's like an internal upgrade of some sort of colonial upgrade culture, and we're being stripped of our old culture.
Well, yeah, I think it was always that had we but known, it's always been the way. We are basically an alien ant farm, you know, that people like you and me and your listeners, we are just, you know, we are like ants to them. We're just a project. We're just like cattle. But we didn't know this before. And now they've come into the open. They're much more blatant about it.
Yeah,
this
maybe
is the end game.
Yeah, I think the end game 1, 2, they must have been doing a lot unknown to us to be this brazen. Anyone listening to the podcast, where can they find you, and what are you working on, and what should they be looking out for?
Well, my book is really, really good, and everyone should buy it when I get around to finishing it, and it's just going to be great.
Is there a place where they can leave their details to find you or something?
There's delingpoleworld.com, which is a website that a friend in Canada runs for me, and there is my Patreon and my Subscribestar. That's about it at the moment. And then I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Getter, so they can contact me there. I've got a Telegram group as well. The Telegram group is where it's really hard to find, and I kind of like it that way. I mean, I haven't got a huge audience on there. I've got about, I think, 5,500 people who follow me, but that's where I put some of my best stuff.
I'll leave it in the show notes as well.
Yeah. And you know, I'm quite strict with the comments, with my moderation of comments. I just burn people or destroy them or get rid of them if they annoy me. Just because we all need a safe space, and that's my safe space. You know, it's like, my view is that if you're in a pub and you're a regular at the pub and you've got your table at the pub and you enjoy the company and the conversation and the banter at that table in the pub, and then somebody comes along off the streets, he's, he thinks he's hard enough. He thinks that he can bring his own kind of brand of whatever to the party, and he has no respect for the rules of the table. And you kind of think, well, that's rude and that's annoying. I don't need that. I don't need your vibes. I'm set the tone here. Yeah.
So you got the book coming up. They can find you on delingpoleworld.com. I'll put that in the show notes, as well as the Telegram group. Be aware you might get kicked out if you're not towing the line. The book, they find out about the book that's also en route in production, and they can find you on Twitter.
Yeah.
But look, I really want to thank you for coming on to the podcast, and I'll put everything in the show notes so people can find you, and I look forward to hearing a lot more about what you're up to.
Great.
I hope you enjoyed the show and the insights adds value to your startup, company or life. As a thank you to the guests for their time, kindly find them on social media and check out what they're up to. Thanks for me, and sending you all the success in everything that you do. To keep up to date with my brand new guests and entrepreneurial journey, hit me up on social media and kindly like, comment, share and subscribe. You can also sign up to my Patreon for exclusive material, sign up to my newsletter at stevencoogan.co.uk for exciting new stuff coming very soon.